Hello.
Hello.
I will have the chat up un momento.
We're living on the edge right now.
Living on the edge.
Living on the edge. This Friday, today, next Friday, and the Friday after are all gonna be a little
hectic,
which it should all start on time because today worked out fine. But our kid is in summer school, and trying to pick up a child from summer school when there's no busing, and all parents have to pick their children up all at the same time, and I have to do that at 11:30, and then I have to get through traffic and get home before the bean starts. Yeah, so if it, for any reason, between now and 2 weeks from now for the Friday bean, if we're like a minute to 5 minutes late, don't go anywhere, we'll be here. It's just the hectic picking up of the child.
Things are wild.
Things are wild. So happy Friday, guys. Today we're going to be talking about anxiety. And I decided to do this topic in particular because I was really surprised by the number of people who emailed me, who commented on my last video, who just reached out to say that they really connected with the topic of anxiety in the video that I posted on Tuesday. So I've got some tips in that video, 7 tips that have helped me personally to run a business while having anxiety. And I also shared kind of how I personify my anxiety to help make it a little bit more manageable in my own mind as someone who doesn't currently take any medication, which obviously make sure that you talk to your doctor. If your anxiety is something that is affecting your day-to-day life to the point where you're not able to function, it might be one of those things where anxiety medication is an option, or maybe even therapy, depending on, what's going on with you and why you're having those anxiety triggers. There's so many reasons for anxiety. But
also keep in mind we're not medical professionals.
Yeah.
So if you do have help, seek help.
Yes.
Or need help, seek help.
Absolutely. Talk to a professional. But today what I wanted to do is give everybody the opportunity to kind of hear a little bit more about anxiety, to, share some of the things that you go through. If you need some advice related to business and anxiety, there's, some things that we can help you with. There are also going to be probably some topics that we can't help you with just because everybody's going to be different. And what I recommend or what I would do for myself might not necessarily be helpful to you because everybody's situation is going to be a little bit differently. Or be a bit different. So if you haven't watched that video from Tuesday, I highly recommend doing that after the Friday bean is over because it's going to tie into today's topic. But if you haven't watched it yet, that's okay. One of the cliff notes, though, that I really want to stress while we get started is that when it comes to anxiety, the number one thing that I've been able to do for my own chronic anxiety is to personify my anxiety. And in the video, I describe it as, imagine your anxiety as a visitor who comes a couple times a month or however, frequently you experience anxiety, panic attacks, etc. When I have anxiety, it's not usually something that gets triggered. I usually wake up and I know that it's going to be there, though I do have anxiety triggers. For example, messy spaces. They, any type of clutter, messy space. Right now, our kitchen is completely ripped apart because
it's terrible.
We're getting a new kitchen, and that's stressing me out because I don't know, like, when are people going to show up? When is this going to get done? When am I going to be able to cook again? Like, the unknown is bothering me. But what I told everybody in my video on Tuesday is that I like to see anxiety as this visitor that comes a couple times a month. And if I try to shut the door on him, if I try to close the door and not let that anxiety in, the anxiety is just going to push back. And I'm going to be in this battle with my anxiety on that door. And the longer I'm going to have to fight, because the more that I try to push against him, our anxiety, the more that he's going to try to get into the door. And what I've personally found for my own anxiety is that if I just go ahead and give him permission to come in, I acknowledge in the morning that, I'm having an anxious day. I'll usually tell Mark right away, like, I woke up really anxious today.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and
then I can avoid her all day.
Yeah, and I just kind of allow it to exist. And if I have a lot of work to do, I will try to isolate myself, work in my office. I'll turn on white noise. I will drink like, hot tea or something. I'll light a candle so that I have some controllables in my environment because, a lot of times my anxiety is triggered by a lack of control. So if I have things in my environment that I can control, it can kind of help me. And if it's, something like the house is messy, like the kitchen right now, there's no way that I can avoid the kitchen being a mess, but I can go into my office where it is clean and close the door and, kind of keep myself in my own space. But if I allow myself to really live with my anxiety for, a short time, I can almost convince myself that it's like this big giant, like pet cat that is sitting on my lap. And yeah, it's very annoying to try to work around a big giant cat, and it's very inconvenient, and it wants to get in the way of your functions. But if I can work around that cat, I will. Or sometimes I will lay in bed with the cat and decide not to work that day, or I'll lay on the couch and watch TV or something. If it's to the point where, okay, the cat is so inconvenient, I cannot think, I cannot work because the cat is in my face, I'll go lay down and just choose that day to be my day, a recovery day. And as long as I'm respecting my anxiety and giving it its time that it wants to be there, it tends to go away on its own. And it'll choose to leave a little bit quicker rather than prolonging that anxiety by trying to push it out the door. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't occasionally have panic attacks and meltdowns, because I absolutely do. We had somebody comment on one of the videos, I think it was Angela, who commented on one of my videos, and she said something like, wow, watching your videos, I would never guess that you have anxiety. Starla on camera is not Starla that is... I'm not day-to-day Starla on camera. I feel that I'm as real as I can be, but I also have to be camera friendly. And yes, there are days when I don't want to do this. There are days when I'm not feeling good. There are days when I'm very anxious. And sometimes you guys can see it, but for the most part, I try to stay professional. But day-to-day, this happens to me a lot. It doesn't happen nearly as much as it did when I was younger, before I started doing research into anxiety. And I learned to kind of respect my anxiety rather than thinking like, oh, there's something wrong with me. I always thought like, oh no, the moon and the stars and nothing's aligning and everything, the universe is out to get me. And then, when you do research into anxiety, you find out that it's just a chemical imbalance. It is your fight or flight reflexes going...
For anxiety disorders.
Yeah.
Not standard, everyone has it all day anxiety.
Yeah, absolutely. And in my video, I talk about the differences between what anxiety is, because there is a thing called healthy anxiety.
Well, we're going to get hate on this video for sure, because there are a lot of people and it's usually particularly older people that have been working hard jobs their whole lives. Oh, I've been dealing with it my whole life. The issue is people have their limits, right? Certain people handle healthy anxiety differently than other people. Just like some people handle pain better. Some people can push spikes through their hands in freak shows and be totally fine. Some people get scratched by a cat and their day is ruined, People have different tolerances to anxiety the same way they do to everything else.
That could be rooted from past triggers and past traumas as well.
Yeah.
Maybe you, every time you see a little red bouncy ball, you have a panic attack because when you were a kid, like you saw, I don't know, a dog run out chasing a ball and get hit by a car. And now every time you see a red bouncy ball, you have a panic attack. Nobody else is going to understand that. They're going to be like, oh, you're just crazy.
And the thing is, when it comes to normal, healthy anxiety, I'm pretty much bulletproof when it comes to normal, healthy anxiety. But I have an actual diagnosed anxiety disorder. Yeah. So I have change anxiety. And basically, and it's not like, oh, somebody changed plans and that upsets my whole day. It's, if anything changes in my perception, so like if I want to watch a particular TV show, or I've been thinking about watching a particular TV show, like say we're in a crowd of people or a group of people that we're all going to watch something, and somebody else suggests something else, instantaneous bad mood. And there's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing I can do to control it. Medication doesn't particularly work. The only thing that really works for it is like antidepressants, and I can't stand the hangover that I get for antidepressants. And it's weird. She talks about like trying to personify it. And mine is more like I'm walking on the side of a bridge with my best friend who has multiple personality disorder. And that person is super nice 1 minute, but then they're a linebacker with a murderous rampage. And they tackle me off the bridge and there's no way to get back onto it. That's what mine feels like. It's pretty awful. But like normal anxiety, just like everyday normal like work pressure anxiety, I work better under pressure. Like I generally work significantly better under pressure when I do have people like bearing down on me. It's just change that I can't stand.
Yeah, and I noticed that it's also, that's something, I'm a big procrastinator. I will wait until the last minute and I will be stressed in that last minute. But if I try to plan, you know, I can plan like social media content out and that's fine. But if I try to plan out YouTube videos like months in advance, I envy the YouTubers who can have like all their YouTube videos scheduled
like
out for
years
months.
worth of stuff.
Yeah, that's not me. I haven't even recorded this upcoming Tuesday's video yet. I don't even know what the topic is going to be. And I normally record those today, and that's probably not going to happen. So it's one of those things where everybody is going to have different ways that they cope with their anxiety, and
or
they
different
handle
reasons that they have them.
Yeah.
Mine is trauma based. Mine
Yeah.
is from my military work schedule constantly changing because I never knew until the day before when I was going to be showing up to work. And that over time, some days showing up at like 6 o'clock in the morning, the next day showing up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that over time just kind of screwed my brain forever.
never being able to have consistent plans.
Having a completely unpredictable, inconsistent schedule for like 5 years, and my brain just couldn't take it.
Yeah. Do you want to get into some comments before we...
Yeah, we can get into some comments. People are really appreciating it. For any of you stinkers out there that really don't think anxiety is a real thing, you probably have worked in a way where you had to learn to deal with it very early on, and you don't experience it the same way other people do.
While you're looking for comments, I did want to point out that in the Handmade Alpha Academy student campus, where just, you know, my coaching students chat, I did a poll asking about anxiety, and I was just curious, how many? We've got like 1,000 members, I think, on the dot in the group. I'm like, how many of you guys experience these symptoms? So one of them is, I have chronic or severe anxiety or an anxiety disorder. 64 people said that they have chronic anxiety or an anxiety disorder.
What's the percent?
25. Whereas only 13%, 35 people said that I only have occasional stress and anxiety. Of those, 38 people, so 14%, said that they suffer from panic attacks. 81 of them said my anxiety affects my business and work, so that's 31%. And only 36 people said that they're able to power through their anxiety to get work done.
I think it's a this comes down to like the human condition, right? So you look at a lot of people who, let's say they're people in their 70s and 80s now, and they complain about people that are younger having anxiety issues and not wanting to work and doing things like that.
My mom's one of those.
Consider how we adapt to trauma. Our muscles do this, our brains do this, everything does this. When you survive a particular kind of trauma, or you survive a particular type of issue, the bar that it takes to break you is either going to drop all the way to the bottom, or it's going to keep going up. And the stuff that people had to go through upwards of 80 years ago compared to now was dramatically more difficult. To get a job was easier, but the work was more manual. See what I'm saying? Like the
wars
and all the stuff that people had to go through. But even some of you guys in your 50s and 60s, the stuff that you guys had to go through and the stuff that you guys had to deal with at a young age was probably a lot harder than what we have to deal with physically. And what we're having to deal with now in our generation is a lot more mental stuff. So people are having a lot more mental issues. They're having to learn how to use all different kinds of technology. They're having to learn all these different kind of processes, and sometimes scientific processes. They have to remember all the different systems and all the different people, and a lot of it is a lot less manual work, and it's a lot more mental work, and people are having a hard time dealing with it because human beings aren't meant to do that. Your muscles adapt, your brain takes time.
Yeah.
So you guys are used to the beat down and the wear and the hard laborious work, but when it comes down to people who weren't raised like that and didn't have to be that way, it's a lot harder for us to adapt to that kind of thing. So just to help with you that don't understand the younger generation's anxiety issues.
Yeah, your brain is a very slow evolving thing. When it comes to the body, I mean, we can change the body within a few months. If I wanted to go like get jacked at the gym, I go to the gym every day and I can change my entire body and be able to,
I can step on a bodybuilding stage in a year.
Yeah, you can do that pretty quickly, right? When it comes to the brain though, you can learn things. But if you read the book Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely, you'll learn that there are a lot of things in our brain that are predictably irrational. They're completely irrational. We don't have control of them, and we can be aware of them, but we still can't change them. Those are things that exist within our reptilian brain that you always hear about. It is the part of the brain that evolved first. So think of it like, rings in a tree. The part that is in the very middle of the tree, you can't really penetrate that part. It's in the core of the tree. It's right in the middle. It's the part of the tree that grew first. And the outer layers, those are a little bit more malleable. You can, if you take a nail and hammer it into the tree, it's going to go through those layers. So you can kind of change the outside of a tree, but the inside of the tree is going to be the strongest because it's been there the longest. Our brain is the same way. There are a lot of habits that we have that we cannot change. A good example of that is jealousy. Jealousy in relationships. That's literally a trait that humans evolved because in nature, if we're talking about like an ancient tribe mentality, if the female has a baby or she's pregnant, a male needs to have jealousy in order to stay around to ensure the survival of female and baby. When we're talking about cavemen and, scary animals that could hurt a female who is pregnant or with a newborn, jealousy is an evolved trait because typically that, people needed each other back then. Obviously, things are different now, but jealousy still exists.
Yeah, and again, we're not medical professionals, but you got to consider that a lot of this stuff is relatively, in terms of history, a new science. I mean, you've got people talking about having PTSD. We didn't even really start addressing PTSD until the 70s and 80s. We still don't really understand it. We still really don't understand what makes PTSD trigger. And I'm sure to some extent PTSD has always existed, but why did we not start talking about it until the 70s and 80s? Well, because people's lives were dramatically harder that were older in those time periods. You look back into like World War I, and people had PTSD, but it wasn't nearly as bad as people coming back from, say, like the Gulf War.
Right.
Like people coming back from the Gulf War really triggered it in the 90s.
Well, not only that, but brain science we have, in the last, I would say 30 years, we have done more with brain science than ever. It's just like, computer technology and how fast it evolved. Because at one time, the only way to study a brain was to take a person and cut their head open and take the brain out and look at it. Now we can see the electricity and the neurons firing in the brain. We have the technology to do things like that. So the more we learn about the human brain and how it works, the more that we're able to diagnose problems. But there are a lot of things that we still don't know. We're still learning. And part of that is the limitations of, not killing people to research their brains,
Exactly.
unfortunately.
Like I have distance PTSD, but I haven't gone to a doctor to have it diagnosed because it's not even technically like a recognized condition yet. Like it's still being studied to whether or not it even exists. It definitely does. Anybody that has it knows that it does, but whatever. Anyway, on to the comments. If you guys have any questions, you're probably good to go ahead and start getting those in. This was more of an open discussion kind of thing.
And I'm happy to share my own my own tips. I think that a lot of people struggle with trying to segment out their time and prioritize. And in the video that I posted on Tuesday, I tell you all the things that I do, which it's things that I talk to you guys about all the time anyway. I talk about Trello. I talk about using a physical planner, which, I showed it off in the video. And I told you guys exactly what type I buy. I try to be as open and honest with you. The one thing that I don't really talk about very much is my OCD that I have, because I always have this like perception that people are going to think that I'm insane. But I have a really bad OCD where I chew the inside of my mouth, and I've been doing it ever since I've had teeth. I've
been fighting her about it since we've been together. She'll do it when she's starting to fall asleep, and I'll roll over and I'll flick her.
Yeah,
quit.
It's constant. It's something that I do every day.
I am a nail chewer, real bad.
Yeah, I chew the inside of my mouth until there is no skin, and then I wait until it grows back, and then I do it again, and it's this vicious cycle. And apparently, it's very, very common. But it does interfere with my life, and it's like the more that I think about it and acknowledge it and try to stop, the worse it gets. And that's just another thing that I think, stems back to my anxiety. But I don't like talking about it because it's like, I don't know. It's one of those things where I don't want people to look at me weird. Like, here's this really, it falls into the exact same category as those who pull their hair. I had a friend in high school who she had the condition where she had to.
It's a compulsive issue.
Yeah,
that's fine. subconscious compulsive. Toffee Apple Studio said, Starla, the way you describe it sounds like my autism. Yeah, and the issue is that we really don't understand anything about autism yet, right? Like we understand small little tidbits here and there,
but we're still learning.
But just like anxiety, it's one of those things where it's like autism covers such a large, ridiculously large spectrum of mental health disorders that sometimes they'll pull them out like, okay, well, this thing is its own thing, this thing is its own thing, like,
but it's case by case because everybody's unique.
Yeah, it is totally case by case. It can vary wildly from one person to another. Some people can be totally normal human beings, go their whole lives and have no idea that they have any kind of autism at all, but they do, and some people are completely unfunctional.
Yeah.
So it's, I think, and this is just personal opinion, I think autism is a slap word that the medical industry likes to throw on things because they don't understand what's actually happening.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of common similarities between a lot of different types, so it definitely narrows down to like one core thing that's being affected, but again,
Absolutely.
Not medical professionals, this is just opinions.
My uncle, we aren't sure because my grandmother wouldn't actually officially take him to get diagnosed, but he had diabetes, and I don't know if
I think he had Down syndrome.
My grandma swore that he had autism, but there was no...
Grandma's been senile for like 40 years.
I know. He was non-functional. He was about the mental equivalent of a 10-year-old child. He was, he didn't know his own strength. He would hurt me as a child, just not understanding, trying to play. And he was a massive man. He was like 6.5 feet tall, very, very large man. So it's one of those things where all my areas of experience have been so vastly different. And then we have some alphas in HAA who are able to hyperfixate on their craft, who have autism. And because they're able to hyperfixate, they are amazing at what they do because it is the thing that consumes their entire world. So there are some benefits there as well to, we've had alphas who say that they see it more as a tool that they can really connect with. And, obviously I'm sure that a lot of them, if they could choose, they might say that they wouldn't have chosen that life, but they see that silver lining and they're able to find a way to, really, really hone in on their craft and make that be their entire world. And they seem to be very, very happy with what they do, which, that's a cool way to look at it, I guess. Mm-hmm. What we got?
Whole bunch of different stuff. It's hard to even know where to start. Let's see. Once I realized that my freaking out was an anxiety disorder, everything made sense. As a child, I was prone to frequent headaches and nosebleeds induced by high anxiety. Yeah, I think anxiety, like actual chronic medical anxiety, is something that goes very undiagnosed. I also think it's something that's very, very heavily abused. I think a lot of people who, again, we talk about people who can't handle mental stress quite as well because they haven't had to go through very much. They've had maybe like a cushy upbringing. I think a lot of people do really abuse it, and it makes it hard for people who have legitimate anxiety issues, like need medical attention anxiety issues, to get the help that they need.
Yeah, because like we said before, there's a difference between, everybody has anxiety. It's our brain's way of saying, hey, quit doing that thing. That's a dangerous thing.
And some people have the higher tolerance, and some people have no tolerance for standard anxiety because they haven't had to deal with it. So they just kind of seem like they're big babies about everything, and that's not it. It's just that they don't know how to cope with standard day-to-day anxiety because they probably were brought up in a household that didn't have any.
Exactly. It's resiliency bringing, and it's pretty. You can usually identify the difference because those with anxiety disorders, it's not like you feel a little bit uncomfortable every once in a while. It is, okay, today I can't do anything. My brain is telling me that I am tired. I do not feel good. I feel awful. My body feels bad. Panic attacks. It's your body going into fight or flight mode because your brain is trying to tell you like there is danger. You need to run. And those are good senses. Those are evolved senses that we had. That way, if we were in the forest at night and we heard a noise...
Anxiety is just like a magnifying glass on that, though. That's the issue. And some people go fight, some people go flight. I go fight. I get angry.
Yeah.
And I have no control over it. That's usually like when I'm having a good day, I'm just like, just stay away from me.
Yeah.
Let's just not be around each other. Let's deal with our problems. Then we'll come back to it later.
And we make decisions like that as a couple.
Yeah. You got to be able to voice your concerns.
Yeah. We make it a point that the moment that we start feeling anxious, we tell each other, and we do what the other person needs. And sometimes it is, don't touch me, just let me zone out, let me work. I'm going to work up in my office, whatever it is. I'm going to lay down for the day. Or if I don't take a nap, my anxiety is going to be even worse. So I'm going to go take a nap. And a lot of times we both do that quite frequently. I would say at least once a week, either you or I needs to zone out away from everything.
We'll usually tell each other, like, I need a day, like, alone. Like, just let me sit at my computer, play my video games, you go upstairs, read a book, and then we'll come back to each other. And by the end of it, we usually miss each other enough that we want to. So
exactly. So make sure
most of the time,
if you have a spouse or a partner, make sure that you express that to them and have that conversation with them when you're not anxious. Say, sometimes this happens to me and I would like to be able to let you know when I feel it. That way you can help me get through it, and here are the things that will help me get through it.
And you absolutely do need to make sure that your spouse understands if you have an actual anxiety disorder. If you are someone who doesn't think they have an anxiety disorder and you just have a hard time dealing with anxiety, you can use simple techniques to treat that. You can work on the breathing techniques, in and out, hold for 5 seconds, kind of stuff like they tell you to do in most stuff. If you have a legitimate anxiety issue, that stuff won't work. That's kind of a way to, like, early signs to tell. Like, if breathing exercises and concentration exercises don't help alleviate your anxiety and an understanding of what causes it, then you probably have something and you should maybe speak to a therapist, and then they can give you more information on it. But if you have a spouse or a loved one that you live with that is absolutely, like, in denial about the fact that you could have an issue,
that could make it worse.
That could make it worse, and it's not acceptable. It's the same thing as, like, people are talking about their parents not believing in mental health issues and stuff like that. That you can't help because you have to live with your parents, but don't be around those people. If you have triggers a lot, and you have issues and you have to be around those people, you have to be exposed to those people, distance yourself as much as you humanly can, because those people are bad for you. It's just not good. It's like being someone who's anorexic hanging out with other anorexic people.
Yeah.
It's just not good for you.
Exactly. You don't want to put yourself in an environment where unhealthy behavior becomes what is acceptable and normal. You need to make sure that it's great to have a support group of others who understand, who are trying to overcome, and who can boost you up, like Amber and I. We will occasionally, vent to each other, and Amber and I think, are pretty good examples of, good business owners who have anxiety and who can kind of bounce each other back when we're feeling like that. And sometimes it's, me messaging Amber or Amber messaging me and saying, I don't want solutions. I just need to vent. I need to spill my guts out. Don't try to solve this. Like, I just need to vent. And, like, where was Amber's comment? She said sometimes it comes in the form of buttery crab. Yeah. You can be having a blast and super chill, and then a buttery crab comes along and ruins your day.
We took her to Red Lobster, and she was not having it.
Yeah, they brought out, crab legs, and the idea of having to touch the wet, buttery crab legs sent her spiraling into an anxiety attack. So, yeah, and it's one of those things where there doesn't need to always be a reason for your anxiety. Sometimes there are triggers. Messy spaces bother me. Sensory overload. If we go into a crowded restaurant and there are too many sounds, every sound that I take in, to me, I perceive them all at the exact same volume. So
that affects my change anxiety as well, because it becomes impossible for me to make decisions internally because I can't concentrate. And that absolutely, my social anxiety is real bad just because of that. I don't mind being in crowds. The thought of being in crowds doesn't bother me, but when I'm in a place and it's very loud and I can't make decisions or do things for myself, it just throws me through. I have to leave.
Yeah.
Can't do it. I don't like parties. I don't like family get-togethers. I don't like stuff like that because people are just loud, yelling at each other.
Yeah, if we have to do like a holiday social thing with his family,
we stay to the quiet corner.
Well, we sit in the quiet corner, or we put on our happy, our family faces, and then when we get home, we're just we just kind of allow our faces to melt back into their normal state, and we stay away from each other for a little while. A lot of people saying that they also have depression and anxiety.
I had depression, but when I got out of the military and got my sleep schedule fixed, that kind of evened itself out. I still occasionally will have an episode. I had actual like clinical depression. I had to be on medication for it for a little while. But it turns out it was probably linked directly to having a crappy sleep schedule and having to switch my schedule off and on constantly and never getting any sleep, and then having to stay up for 30 plus hours to switch my schedule every other week.
I just realized we're both like wearing purple today.
I mean, mine's salmon-ish.
No, it's
It just
not.
doesn't
It's
look like it on camera.
Purple.
It's because of the lights. Mine, it's more pink.
Everything's purple.
Where do
listening
you get
to
your
he-
meditative music from, Dulcie?
Yeah.
I just turn on an EDM playlist.
Yeah, you can
Chaotic
find...
music helps me, weirdly enough.
Ooh, not me.
Chaotic music really helps. I like EDM. I like jazzy, kind of modern prog metal, that kind of stuff.
I listen to, I've got a white noise playlist of like just rain and storms and things like that that I turn on to drown out everything else, because as long as I can drown out other sounds and there's only one, then I'm usually okay. Sometimes I can't even handle that though. I just need dead silence.
Your shirt is mauve through my screen.
Mauve. I love that. That's
Mauve.
That's my color that I gravitate towards for my makeup is mauve.
Martha said, when I'm ready to open my shop and for some reason I'm not happy with my company name, can I change it?
Yeah. I think you only get what? You only get so many changes, I believe, for Etsy. But you
Might
should
be over a time period.
I think you can only change it a couple times, but you should be fine. Just make sure that you're really happy with that name and you should be good.
I think physical labor can trump emotional distress. Not talking about exercise. I'm talking about like old style farming, truck farming, that kind of stuff. Yeah, just stuff that drains all of your ATP, drains all of your energy out of your body. You don't have enough energy to be mentally distressed anymore.
Yeah.
But that is the kind that sucks. Like, especially when you start working out, like at a gym, if you go to the gym for like 2-3 hours a day for a while, then you like get sore and can't go to the gym the next day, but then you're sore and anxious and it's just the worst.
Both your brain and your body require glucose. So
because it's ATP.
yeah, and
ATP is the end goal.
it is a finite resource, but you have more of it in the morning. So after you've
Yes,
rested
you
and
do.
eaten.
And ATP in the muscles is a little bit like how things are moved around is a little bit different than the brain, but it all comes down to ATP and how much you have less. You expend it. Everything that you do, you expend ATP, whether you're thinking or working out.
A lot of people with OCD, body-related OCDs.
Those could also be nervous disorders too. Those might not necessarily just be OCD. Nervous disorders.
Yeah, they're typically connected though. Most of the time, they're rooted to an anxiety.
Well, you have
disorder
one thing
that-
and it causes another thing to happen.
Exactly,
Yeah. Same thing
exactly.
as like when I had a ganglion cyst in my wrist, and I was still using it constantly, and it caused another one to form in my armpit because my body was trying to get me to stop using my hand. Your body likes to compensate in really weird ways. I found several people that have been stealing my images, removing my watermark logo, and using it as their own listings on Etsy and on their own websites. I've been super stressed out and anxious. Report them to Etsy.
Yeah,
if they're
report
on
them to
Etsy.
Etsy.
Other websites you can't really do a lot about. You can go to let me see the website.
Yeah, if you report it to Etsy though, Etsy can see like who listed what first, and they'll typically take things like that down because they can see who listed the thing first.
Let's do like I'm gonna check this first.
Okay, make sure that this works.
Well, make sure that there's nothing personal showing here. That's not what I want.
Let's see.
There we go. I can.
One moment, please.
I was just making sure none of our like personal information was here. Okay, so let's go make sure this will screen share. For personal websites that people are selling on, I recommend lookup.ican.org. I'll type this in the chat when I'm done. Here, I'll just go back to...
Oh, that Dance Dance Revolution tab up there.
Yeah.
That's great.
ICANN lookup. We'll do handmadealphaacademy.com.
Hey, we own that.
We do. And what this is going to do, this is going to give you all the information that you can publicly see. So if people are selling copyright products, here's an abuse email you can email. And this will be different depending on websites. You just have to look about this stuff. At registrars, what you're going to want to look for, and they'll provide you information on how to contact them. Like this one has the domain, and it also has the phone number. You can report abuses on a lot of websites. I will say, we're good.
Okay.
So U.S. and some UK, EU countries will have this information. Most Asian countries won't show anything because they don't respect Western laws. So most of you guys aren't going to be able to do anything about it, because most of the time when you're having your product stolen like this, it is going to be
a Chinese company,
Middle Eastern company, something like that, in a country that doesn't have laws that will respond to what we request over here. So if it's a country you can't sue, then you can't do anything about it. But also, I wouldn't worry too much about it because they're usually really, really, really bad at it. Etsy, though, you can just report it straight to Etsy and they'll do something about it.
Yeah.
Let me scroll down, make sure there ain't nothing weird.
We always have to check and make sure there's no weirdos.
Anxiety is why I don't show myself in Reels or start vending my goods locally. It's such a pain and it's stunting my business ability to grow, but I hate being on chill bills, so I'm stuck.
You totally don't need to be on camera for your Reels. Products are more interesting than faces are when it comes to a product-based business. People are there to see your things. If you're comfortable showing your hands, you could show how you're making your products. You could be holding your products. You could be packaging your products with one of the overhead camera mounts. But you absolutely don't need to show your face, because when it comes to a product-based business, the product itself is the most important thing. You can absolutely build a great connection with customers by showing your faces, but it's a lot different for a content-based business like mine, where my face is the business. For you guys, show your products and your process and your packing orders and where all your products are and your office and your supplies. Show things like that.
Mm-hmm. Got a question. Pre-launch anxiety. I have a meltdown this time of year from self-hate. How do you seasoned alphas prep or power through it?
So launching is always scary, and I think that the best thing that you can do for yourself is in the weeks leading up to your launch, before it really hits, remind yourself that it's going to happen. Even for the opening of Handmade Alpha Academy, I've got my little physical planner, and I'm always anxious leading up to HAA opening, because that is essentially a launch. So I went ahead of time in my planner and I flipped forward a few weeks to launch week, and I wrote myself little notes it'll be okay. I put little stickers with little affirmations and things. Just remind yourself that it's going to happen, and anticipate it a little bit more. That way you're not blindsided. And also remind yourself that it is completely normal to be anxious during your launches, because essentially an anxiety attack or a panic attack is your body going into fight or flight mode because it's predicting danger. Disconnect yourself from that and remind yourself there's no real danger. What's the worst thing that could happen? Well, the worst thing that could happen is I don't make any sales. Is that the end of the world? Probably not. You start to be able to break it down and why it exists and why it happens and what the worst case scenarios are. And if you acknowledge what those are and you look at them, you're like, okay, these actually aren't that bad. And sometimes that helps me.
Lo-fi beat. Yeah, lo-fi is where it's at. Breathing exercises where you extend the amount of time on the outlet breath. For instance, 3 and 5 out will help lower your heart rate, and this should help with anxiety, or it does for me. It usually helps for me, too. Nothing relieves stress and depression better than taking a cold shower. I don't know. Alcohol works. Just kidding. Don't do that. Caffeine is also very, very, very bad for it. CBD helps me. If you're in a legal state, you can use the real thing. Just be responsible. And
avoid caffeine.
Drink water. Good God, keep your brain hydrated. A lack of water is probably solely responsible for a majority of issues that people have.
Yeah, we had to break ourselves from constant caffeine. We still drink a little more than we probably should. But I was drinking I was drinking 6 Diet Cokes a day, and I switched to flavored seltzer water so I could still get the fizzy without, anything. So that's kind of helped me.
That's sad. I'm allergic to water.
What? You're allergic to water,
Your body
Karen?
is 90% water.
That's insane, Karen. What do you do?
I think she's lying.
Oh. What do you... She's...
I don't... Can you be allergic to water?
Are you allergic to water?
You would be allergic to yourself. Your brain is 70% water.
What do you do? What do you drink? Let us know. I want to know. Now I'm curious. I didn't think that you could be allergic to water. Let me know. What do you drink? How do you live? What's your life like?
Amber said, sometimes your anxiety will tell you what is best to hide and be alone, but forcing myself to come downstairs and show my husband what a panic attack really looked like was the start of knowing I can trust him with my mental health, and it was better for me to not be alone in that moment, sharing the load. Exactly. Sometimes you need help.
Especially when the other side doesn't understand. It's definitely, it's both easier and harder when you both suffer from anxiety. Easier because you can tell the person, like, I'm having... really bad anxiety right now.
They said I get sick. It's the pH balance.
Oh,
gotcha.
Okay.
Understandable.
Do you have to drink special water? Like,
I'm assuming that you got to drink some special, like, balanced water, or maybe you have to, like, process your water.
Do you have, like, a special filter for your water?
Does the gym reduce anxiety? It can. I mean, you look at how insanely unhealthy people are. I mean, I'm overweight. She's overweight. I'm sure, like, I mean, the majority of the people here are American. And what's the obesity rate in America? It's pretty high. It's over it's over 60%, which means that over probably 60% of you are probably overweight as well. And that can cause a lot of issues. You got to consider how much of your body relies on you having a healthy, particularly your circulatory system, your heart, your cardiovascular system, like getting good oxygen to all of your organs, getting ample oxygen to the brain, being able to circulate vitamins, minerals, water, and get rid
of nutrients as well.
Getting rid of waste. It takes less time to get rid of waste if there's less waste to get rid of. Like, there's a lot that can be fixed by exercise. It's probably not going to help an anxiety disorder.
Well, I will say that when
I
was at my peak, going to the gym twice a day, every day, I was, trying to get into competitive bodybuilding.
Me too.
I found that the gym made me more anxious only because I hyperfixated on fitness to the point where...
Overly physically self-aware.
It was to the point where if I could not find the appropriate meal to eat for the macros that I needed for that day, I would not eat an almond more than what I was supposed to eat. And if I could not, like, if anything happened that prevented me from being able to eat my meals, it destroyed me, and it gave me a very negative self-body image, even though I looked better than I ever had.
That's different than just going to the gym to be healthy, though. Not everybody goes to the gym to be a professional bodybuilder.
Exactly.
No, for those people here that think that way, muscles on a girl don't look bad. They actually look very attractive to most men. If you're with a guy that's self-conscious about a woman having muscles, then you are with someone who is misogynistic, first of all. Dump them. I think that's silly. I think it's silly. But I mean, realistically, if anybody here does want legitimate advice to, like, losing weight, do something for an hour a day. Doesn't have to be strenuous exercise, just somewhere to start. Stop drinking pop, diet or otherwise. It's not good for you. It messes diet soda. For those of you that are diabetic or severely diabetic, you probably understand how it messes with your insulin levels. Like, that's not just people that are diabetic. That's everybody. So if you drink regular Coke, regular Mountain Dew, that kind of stuff, switch to diet and then start to wean yourself off, because that sugar is probably the thing that's making you unhealthy.
Yeah.
The majority of people could lose, on average, I think it's like 10 to 20 pounds. Like something like 5% of their body weight, 5 to 10% of their body weight, just removing sugar from your diet.
Yeah.
It's that easy. Don't drink pop, don't eat sugar. Processed sugar.
I switched over to the seltzers, and a lot of people are like, "Ugh, those are," and they are nasty. Like, the first drink, it's nasty, just like the first time you taste beer, which I don't like beer, but everybody's like, "Oh, that's nasty." And then the more you drink them, you start like, okay, you get used to them, and then they become a really great alternative.
Yeah.
And
you'd be really surprised when you fully cut sweet things out. Like, I only drink pop maybe once every couple of weeks. I don't really drink sugar. Like, this is probably this is sickeningly sweet to me. And that's the interesting thing, is that when you cut sugar and stuff out of your diet, for one, that will help with anxiety because you don't have an overload of carbohydrates trying to be formed in your body. or trying to be processed within your body so your body can concentrate on doing things it needs to do. But sweet foods become too sweet. Like normal drinks that people go to Starbucks, I cannot even stomach them. They make me vomit. I cannot even drink them anymore. And that should show you how insanely unhealthy those are, that if you stop drinking stuff like that for a long time, that you literally can't intake them without making yourself physically ill. And I can't. Like a lot of cakes and stuff, really like icing on cakes bothers me. I have to have a very thin layer of icing. It's just too much.
Yeah.
It's weird. But the body is a very weird thing, just like the brain. I overplay processes of working on my orders and working on something new, and it goes on an eternal reel till my nerves get the better of me and it drains my energy without getting anything done.
Sounds like maybe you should plan out your weeks ahead of time. That way you have allotted time slots. I know that some people say that, oh, I can't stick to a schedule. Nobody can. At first, it's discipline, and after a while, it's almost like, okay, if you have a dog and you never train it, it will run all over the place and it will poop everywhere and it'll chew on things. And overall, the dog will be less happy. It's not a happy dog to have a dog that just runs wild. That a dog requires a little bit of discipline in order to be happy. And we're very much the same way. Once you actually get yourself reliant on that discipline and that schedule, it becomes more of something that helps to soothe you. It's just breaking through and actually sticking with it long enough to allow it to be something that you rely on, similar to brushing your teeth. Like, you don't even think about it, you just do it, and your schedule can be the same thing. I used to think of the gym like that, where I said it's as easy as brushing your teeth, and now I can't get myself to do it every day.
I bought a Tibetan sound bowl and done wonders for feeling the vibrations directly while also listening to the lower tones. Yeah, that stuff can be pretty wild. Amber said, and for the alphas after dark, kink and BDSM is honestly life-saving sometimes. It's one of the many things that immediately fixes my mindset and resets everything. Some people can handle that. For a lot of people, it makes it worse. So just be careful, be safe. Just like we say in our alphas, that we haven't done one in a long time, but the alphas after dark live streams. Make sure you know what you're doing, educate yourself, and don't jump into something too extreme too fast, because you can really hurt yourself or someone else. Question. I make one-of-a-kind jewelry, upcycled from vintage. Costume, not fine. Is Etsy actually not for me? Thanks in advance. No. Upcycled from vintage? No. That's fine.
Yeah. I would say that the algorithm isn't going to favor you as much, simply because the algorithm favors items that can be generated into bestsellers. But as long as you're willing to do a little bit of your own external marketing, which you would have to do if you sold it on your own website or on any platform, really, all algorithms are going to favor what's working. And, you can't gauge what's working when something can only sell one time. So I would say that your best bet would be to start some social media accounts associated with your business, no matter where you decide to start it. Etsy's a great place because Etsy takes care of everything for you. So...
as soon as I feel that a panic attack is approaching, I immediately start laughing forcefully, loudly, and as for long as I can, and I succeed. Yeah, it's like the super awkward scene in Final Fantasy X. Well, the whole point of that was that you can laugh no matter what, and that nothing can stop you from being happy if you really want to be.
I hate that Final
Fantasy scene. If you can't, then you don't want to be happy. That's the point. That you can always be happy and you can always laugh, and if you can't, then you're the one that doesn't want to be happy, not the other way around.
And I understand all of that, but watching...
It's still super awkward because it's like crappy old PS2 graphics. Yes, it's the most awkward scene, but almost one of the most lovey-dovey scenes in video game history. But anyway. And Linda had asked, what's brown noise? That's when you eat too much Taco Bell.
What is brown noise, isn't it?
It's a particular frequency. I don't particularly believe in binaural beats or in brown noise. It's definitely relaxing. It's relaxing in the same way as like predictable lo-fi music is relaxing, but I don't know if there's any
correlation.
If there's any, because it's mostly pseudoscience that goes over kind of stuff like that. So I don't know if there's anything legitimate to it yet. I'm sure there's something to it, but I don't think you can readjust your brain waves using sounds. Because I don't think that's how that works, but I could be wrong. Not a professional, but it's all pseudoscience at this point. I think I have some kind of insomnia. Wake till 4 or 5 a.m. during the week and then literally sleep the entire day on Saturday. Yeah, I had severe insomnia getting out of the military.
Yeah, and that can also Ginny, that might be affecting your vitamin D as well if you're not getting any like sunlight at all. Vitamin D is going to also affect your mindset, your happiness, your, you know, cognitive functions. There's so many things that vitamin D that your body needs vitamin D for. So.
For Mark, do you know anyone personally in the military with an eating disorder? I was in treatment with a few others, both men and women, who were in service. Hi.
Because
I do. I still do.
They have to scarf their meals as quickly as possible, or they don't.
I don't think that's what it is. I think it's an expectation. But yeah, I have severe. I hate calling it food addiction, but I mean realistically, that's what it is, and I still struggle with it. I've struggled with it my whole life. I feel like I just need a video of my boyfriend or someone I trust looking at the camera and telling me everything is okay, the world isn't ending. There's a whole community on TikTok that does that weird stuff.
Oh no, it's
super cringy, but if you need it, it's there.
Yeah, I think that having a partner,
boyfriend TikTok, it's a thing.
Yeah, maybe I mean, do you have somebody that you could call or talk to during those points, like where you need to vent? Because every once in a while I can't like vent to him because I don't want to, like, you know, especially if he's stressed. So Amber's who I vent to. Even if she can't listen to my message right away, we use the Marco Polo app, which is basically like a virtual walkie-talkie. So you can either listen to the replay of the video or you can watch it in the moment.
It's Rob.
Oh.
For me, the worst case is when somebody yells at me. My PTSD is from verbal abuse and is disappointed. My brain then spirals and sees my business collapsing from one mad customer with a mad review. Yeah, that's why I can't do things like customer service, and thank God I never had to work a face-to-face, like, fast food job. Probably go to jail.
I got a burger thrown at me once at McDonald's.
My first reaction to stuff like that is just to swing.
Throw the burger back.
Yeah, I'll throw the burger back. Yeah, I don't handle people, like, yelling at me well. I just immediately go into fight mode. You can be all allergic to the additives in the water: plastic, leaching, chlorine, fluorine, etc. Yeah, there's a lot of different things that you can do. We're looking at getting a filter installed that takes all that crap out of your water, but ones that actually work can be upwards of like $5,000-$6,000 to install. So, yup. In high school, I was properly addicted to Coca-Cola. Was drinking more than a 12-pack a day. Was it regular Coke? Because it was probably the sugar.
Yeah.
And was basically stealing and laundering coins to get it at school. I don't advocate for this. Yeah. No, it really is a severe issue. There was some research that came out. If I can remember it, I'll post it. But that was going over how the sugar industry was lobbying for a long time that sugar didn't cause any severe issues. And more recent research has come out showing that, like, sugar is one of the #1 causes for cancer. Sugar absolutely rots your mouth. It causes all kinds. And not only that, it's not the same thing, but it is potentially, once you are addictive, just as hard to break as heroin is. So sugar is definitely addictive and will screw your body all kind of up. If you're the kind of person that drinks regular pop, you really should wean off of it. It is very bad for you.
So think about why sugar is as addicting as it is, because it's addicting like a drug is. The reason is that in nature, if we were to come across something very sweet, like a fruit or honey or something that tasted very, very good, our brain would say, oh, we don't know when we're going to get this many calories again. This is a rare find. Eat as much of it as you can. That way, this can sustain us for a long period of time. It's supposed to taste very, very good to us. It's supposed to be, something wonderful that we only get little bits of, because we would only find little bits of it in nature. And that's why it's so dangerous to eat it in such quantity, which, we're still absolutely guilty of it. There's totally a new cookie place that just opened down the street that
I'm going there right after the live stream.
But it's being
moderation, people. Moderation.
It's being aware that it's the people who don't know who I worry about, who can't say, oh, maybe I should just eat one cookie. It's the people who say, I'm going to eat all the cookies, because it's not necessarily even just like a weight thing. You could be, a supermodel and still have a sugar addiction that is affecting your insides. So this isn't even a weight discussion. There are so many things that
Oh yeah, no,
sugar
there's a
can-
lot. It's bad for your brain. It's bad
Yeah.
for everything. Dulcie said in red meat addiction. I don't actually believe that it exists. I believe that is a sodium issue. I think people get addicted or require a ridiculous amount of sodium because they take in a ridiculous amount of sodium. I don't actually think red meat addiction is real. Personal opinion, could be totally 100% wrong. We're meant to eat everything. I'm not going to get into the whole like dietitian issue, but
Actually, what if it's... I will actually do. Well, actually... What if it's more about being addicted to the hormones and steroids and things that the common...
Maybe, but I doubt it.
Because the beef industry, we know that you're not just getting cow.
Most of that stuff that does damage you has been outlawed, and the rest of it, the majority of it, you just pee it out. So
I don't know.
I don't
Send
know.
us some studies.
I don't know enough about it.
I know that you're a vegan, right? Send us some studies because I bet you have some.
Yeah, I'm not against veganism by any stretch of the imagination, but I disagree with like 99% of the scientific points for why people should be vegan. So we won't get into that argument today because I personally eat whatever the heck you want. I really don't care.
We've tried to reduce our meat intake as well.
We have reduced our meat intake. I only eat it to meet my protein requirements for the day, because there's what the FDA tells you that you should eat in a day, which is wildly inaccurate, and then there's what you should actually eat in a day based on the physical activity, because they do the whole like based on a 2,000 calorie diet. She does not need 2,000 calories in a day. She needs about 1,600 calories in a day if she doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
I need about 2,600 calories in a day if I'm not doing anything because of the muscle mass that I have from when I was bodybuilding back in the day. So for me to like baseline, not gain, not lose any weight, I have to take in like 2,600 calories. So you can calculate all this stuff up on the internet. You can look it up. You put in your height, your weight, your body proportions, that kind of stuff. And it'll give you a rough guess into how many calories. And then you portion that out. There's not really a solid science into how many you should eat. Some people do like 30% fat, 40% protein, and then fill in with carbs. Some people like 10% fat. Some people do the keto thing where it's like less than 5% carbs and then everything else is fat and protein. There's a science to it. Just be safe, do your research, and get a professional. Hire a professional nutritionist if you really want to get into that kind of stuff.
We've tried all the things. I would like to switch to a diet of what people call like non-intelligent animals, where you like eat shellfish and things like that. No like octopuses or anything, because they are obviously a hyper intelligent animal, but like relying solely on like clams and mussels and things like that, as opposed to chickens and cows and pigs.
But you have to worry about
Mercury.
mercury and other poisonings and stuff with water too, and sodium as well. If they're saltwater animals, you have to worry about sodium content. Moving helps even if you can't get out of bed. Flail like a wet floppy fish. It might not release the pent-up adrenaline, but at least it'll make you giggle. Yeah. I switched to iced coffee instead of Cokes. In most cases, that's worse. Starbucks, like medium-sized latte is like, what, 40 grams of carbs, 50, 60 grams of carbs?
I think it just depends on what's in it.
It depends on what you get.
They have a decent... We always do 1 pump of sugar-free vanilla in our drinks.
Their sugar-free vanilla uses sugar alcohol, which is still carbohydrates.
Only their mocha, not their vanilla.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought they got rid of their sugar-free mocha.
They did, but that was the only one. And they probably had to get rid of it because diabetics were drinking it, assuming that there was no sugar. But
because there's sugar alcohol in it, and that's still sugar. It's just we classify it. I'm not getting into that.
Yeah, but that's probably why they discontinued
I am going to love the comment section of this video. I know we are going to get so much hate. You're wrong. I went to school for it. I went to school for exercise and nutritional science.
Here's the thing. If anybody disagrees with us,
Provide a source. Provide a source that isn't a news article. Provide like an actual, like...
We're teachable.
Yeah, teach us. Send me an article from like, what is it, NCBI. Send me a peer-reviewed article or peer-reviewed scientific study, not a mommy blog. Because those are usually wrong.
I think that a lot of the issues that we have on our channel with people like being mad at Mark is they find him to be like they assume that because he is passionate about something that he's like angry at everybody who disagrees. But we are so scientifically driven that we're wrong a lot, when it comes to things that we aren't experts in. When it comes to the things that we know about, for sure, when it comes to like Etsy, SEO, things like that, we are pretty confident about it, and we'll fight tooth and nail. But
and I could be wrong about nutrition stuff. The science on that stuff changes literally on like an annual basis. Like it changes so frequently
and you went
that
to
it's
college
hard to. And I went to
4
college
years ago.
Yeah. That's when I quit out of it. I took my mainline classes and quit. I didn't care about the degree. I just wanted to know what I wanted to know, and when I got it, I stopped.
You didn't do all the silly things.
I don't believe in college degrees. I now can't handle the fizz in drinks because of my addiction. It makes me sick and hurts in my mouth. Yes, it's yucky.
Have you tried Spindrift? It's a flavored seltzer.
I have not.
I like Waterloo. Of all the like trendy ones, LaCroix and Perrier and Bubbly, I like Waterloo the best.
Ooh, if you crave ice cream, try putting a banana or mango in the freezer. Texture is just like ice cream. Yeah, you can blend it with a little bit, if you can have it, a little bit of Greek yogurt, with a just a little hand blender, or if you have a like a Ninja blender or something like that, one of those countertop blenders, just mix it with a little bit of Greek yogurt. Might take some experimenting to find the right consistency, but then it turns into like an ice cream. It's nice.
I did one banana with like a sprinkle of cocoa powder, and then I would blend it, and then I would go and stir it every 30 minutes in the freezer, and it would turn into a really good consistency.
The reverse osmosis is one of the best filter systems. Expensive but cheap considering it's for your health. Not to mention, like, you can get a good reverse osmosis system for like $3,000, and those last for like 1,000,000 gallons. Like, they have a 10-year warranty on them, usually in the U.S.
Yeah, I love what Karen said. If you have a family history of addiction, anything can become your drug, and we both do.
I have been addicted to alcohol at least 3 times.
Yeah.
Since I turned 21. Once before I was 21, actually.
When we were really young, he kept, a bottle of, was it tequila?
I worked like 18-hour shifts in a factory. I couldn't sleep. I would come home, take a big chug off it, and pass out.
And we were not
healthy.
Of age.
We were not healthy at all.
He was like the teenage factory grinder, drinking, shooting tequila to go to sleep at night. I was
making that bank though.
But we couldn't enjoy it.
No, I was making like $800 a week. Eating less processed food also helps with craving less sugar. Yes, it does. And so does drinking water. Drink water. Don't drink diet soda. If you are going to drink diet sodas, don't drink them within like an hour before eating or with the food that you're eating, because it messes with your insulin and it can cause you to eat more. In studies that happened, this was a few years back, but in studies they showed that people that drank diet sodas as compared to people who drank just water with their meals, people that drank diet sodas ate on average, it was like 30% more. It was I'm not going to give an exact number because I don't remember, but I think it was like 30% more food in a sitting when they were drinking it as compared to people who were drinking water. So drink water while you eat, and don't drink diet pop before you eat either.
And to go with that point about the making more of your own food, one of the things that I learned while I was bodybuilding was that to stay on the perimeter of the store and don't go into the middle of the store. The perimeter of the store is going to be where the meats, the veggies, the fruits, and sometimes the bread is also on the perimeter, but stick to the things that are on the edge, and then obviously, if you can find some whole grain items like rice, oats, things like that, those are going to be inside the store, but you can usually find the best food on the perimeter.
What's the best way to add shipping insurance for the customer to opt for? Make a listing?
I wouldn't make it a separate listing. I would add it as a variation if you can, a paid variation to add to the listing. Because if you do it as a separate listing, there's a very high likelihood that they won't find it or they won't see it.
I'll send you a few. Our government allows so much in our food that isn't legal other places in the world. Yeah, if you stick to mostly natural like places, if you get food or you get your meats from places that don't use like pesticides in the vegetables and they don't use hormones in the meat, that kind of stuff, and you strictly stick to making things that don't come in a box or a can, you're usually okay. You can avoid 99% of that stuff. What are you classifying poultry and fish in your meat?
Are you classifying poultry and fish in your meat?
I eat all kinds of meat.
Yeah, I can't remember the context to what we were talking about at the time.
I don't remember exactly what we were talking about at the time. Chicken and cows are intelligent. Yeah.
I would consider them.
So are pigs.
Pigs, chickens, cows. Non-intelligent animals would be animals that don't have an active brain, like a clam. Some people might say shrimp could also fall into that. Like mollusks are okay to eat for somebody who eats a non-intelligent animal, aside from octopuses and squids, because we've have evidence to prove that they are hyper intelligent animals that are able to recognize people and respond to them. I mean, same with pigs. Pigs are one of the most intelligent animals in the world, but doesn't stop the bacon industry from being the only meat traded on the stock market.
Plus, fishing kills dolphins and
Yes.
other marine life more than you think. Yeah, and if you want to get away from that kind of stuff, do strictly farmed fish. I love how Mark is fact-based and honors that. We both try to be. She said science is about changing and evolving based on new findings. Yeah, there has been a huge resurgence of science deniers in the last couple of years. In particular, COVID got it real bad about it. And we're not here to argue the semantics about how COVID started and all that kind of stuff. But science can be wrong. Science cannot lie. That's the difference between an opinion and science. Science tries its best. Obviously, opinionated studies and backed studies and things like that.
Biases.
Biases. The human bias is a very real thing. But the scientific process itself, while it can be wrong, cannot lie. So always go with information that you think is going to be the best source. And if that information changes, be open-minded. That's the difference between a lot of older generations and a lot of younger generations, is people find something out. And then that, especially older generations are particularly bad about this. My grandparents and my parents are very bad about it.
My parents too.
Yeah, both of our families. So we're not trying to be ageist or get on anybody, but older generations are definitely worse about this. They find something out, and then that's the fact for life.
Well,
and that's not how anything works, because just now in the last 20 years, most everything has changed. Medical science has changed. Marine biology, all the things that we know about space. We know that gravity is waves now. We observed gravity once a couple of years ago as a wave. Everything in science changes, and your opinions about those things have to be able to evolve and change with them as well.
The thing is, with growth and development and age, we lose the our brain becomes less malleable, I guess is a good way to describe it. Where, you know how we talk about babies and we're they're like sponges, they learn everything. Well, that doesn't just stop with babies. Everybody's like, oh, birth to age 3, you're a sponge. No, you're always a sponge. You just become less absorbent and
more dense.
Exactly. And this doesn't apply to everybody. This is not one of those universal things where
some people are totally the opposite.
Exactly. We have so many people in HAA. We've even got a couple alphas who are in their 80s who are just, they're sponges. But because of that, it does become a little bit harder to learn, because as we grow and develop, our brain becomes more solidified, and the neural patterns, the ones that we've had the longest, are the hardest to change. So if you were a teenager when you learn something, and then you're in your 50s when science disproves that thing, a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people might say, oh, hooey.
It's a majority. It's not like
Pluto's a planet.
Yeah, it's not a minority of people. It's a majority of people, and that's why we have such an issue on the left-right political spectrum. And we're not going to get into politics. I promise we won't get into politics. But that's why we have an issue, is because people on both sides of the spectrum are sort of stuck in their ways and not willing to either admit that they're wrong or change their opinions based off of more relevant and more true facts. That we have this huge divide between everybody. And it's fine if you want to question science. That's the most scientific possible thing that you could do in the world, is to question scientists. That's what scientists' jobs are, is to question their own opinions and question their colleagues' opinions. That's how you form better opinions. But do it with anything that we've talked about here today, do it in the most factual and scientific way that you can. Use scientific deduction. Does this make sense? Here's what I think. Here's my facts about it. Here's all the things that I can find about it that aren't just from mommy blogs and Facebook posts. And then come to your own conclusions based on those things. And if you have to write things down, but never take anything at face value. At face value. Do your own research.
And there's a way to research as well. For example, let's say that you want to prove that eating chocolate is super good for you, and you go to Google and you want to tell somebody how chocolate's actually really good for them, and you type into Google all the reasons why chocolate is good. reasons why chocolate is healthy, reasons why, and you find all these things about like, how chocolate is good for like heart health and things. And then you only have that side of the spectrum because you have a bias where you are already trying to prove that chocolate is good for you. Therefore, you only looked at things that are related to chocolate being good for you. So you have a lot of good points, but you're missing the entire other side of the story about why chocolate is bad because you didn't treat each side equally when doing your research, because you had an outcome that you wanted and you only did research to support the outcome that you were hoping for. And that's the problem with a lot of people doing their own research is that they don't look at both sides.
Personal bias.
Exactly.
Look into the different kind of biases.
Cognitive biases.
There are cognitive biases, there are societal biases, there are religious biases, there are expectative biases, there are so many different kinds of biases. And you can do this with everything. And I highly recommend, especially if you're someone who is very politically fueled, that you, no matter what side you're on, do the same thing. Remember that the best way to win an argument is to understand 100% of the reason why somebody on the other side thinks the way that they do. And that's the reason that we have such a problem with our politics now, is because both sides literally do not concede on anything. You have to be able to concede your point 100% in your own head to understand why the other side thinks that way. And it's the same way with science. It's the same way with nutrition. It's the same way with everything. You have to be able to look at both sides of the page to get the full story.
Yeah. And then this can even be translated over to explaining, anxiety to a spouse, where if they feel like you are attacking them, they will treat it as an attack rather than trying to sit and have an open and honest discussion about things that you would like to, for example, maybe a change in their behavior to help benefit you. If you say, you always do this, you always make me feel like this, that's an attack. There's a way to sit down and say, when you do this, it makes me feel this way. But if we did it this way instead, it might make me feel a little bit better. So could we try this next time? Or if I'm feeling this way, could I use a special word or something I could say to you to let you know that I'm feeling this way so that we can work towards a solution together?
Karen said, you mean you have to have an open mind? What an idea. Yeah, and the issue is that especially in places where the education level is low, people tend to be a lot more closed-minded. It's a scientific fact. It's a problem that a lot of people have nowadays, is being closed-minded, and the whole world would be so much better if people were actually capable of being that way. But some people just aren't capable of it. What program/videos would help me make a nice looking graphics for digital cards that don't look like a 5-year-old created them? I want to explore this option more. Somebody might be able to answer that here that does graphic design. I don't do graphic design.
Yeah, Linda, I would say that starting out, Canva templates and starting with an existing template. If you go to Canva and you type in like greeting card, it'll give you a bunch of ideas, and then just sub out the text with your own text and maybe start dragging your own images. But a template is a good way to start because everything is already laid out where it should be. You just need to swap out the images and put them in the same places. That way you create a little bit more symmetry and balance if that's something that you're not already good at. Because that's something that some people just aren't good at. And I had to learn to be good at symmetry and balance and things when it came to visuals. But most people don't just start out good at those things. You have to kind of train your brain.
Got to go down the gluten-free aisle. Please, God, don't get me started. Yes, if you're a celiac, or if you have celiac disease, yes, go down the gluten-free aisle. Dated a marine biologist, and he told me how amazing mollusks and squids and octopuses are. Dude, squids are so smart. Octopuses, too.
We watched this video of this octopus where a person would come every single day and feed him, and he would, come up and start crawling and, get in the guy's face and, start begging for food with his little tentacles. It was the cutest thing.
Yeah, and then there was the woman that worked at the, where was it? She worked in an aquarium. And she would go in and clean the tank, and it would rush out of its little cave and grab her hand and try to pull her into the cave to hang out, and would not leave her. Anytime she tried to get out of the tank, it would swim up and grab her.
She would
no.
She would try to push it away, and it would just float right back.
And they had one of the aerators on the thing, and it would swim up to the aerator and get itself shot up into the air and just like fall down all dramatically and then swim back up.
Ride the bubbles.
So cute. They're so smart.
I wish that we had the technology to explore our oceans more, because I think that some of the most intelligent life on Earth is probably located in our oceans. We just can't get anything down there because of the pressure.
I'm working on trying to get myself to be more self-disciplined. I read that self-discipline is having respect for yourself. Absolutely. When you have an anxiety day, how do you still stay productive? It depends on the severity.
Yeah. So if I wake up, I will know right away. If I try to work and nothing is happening, it's not my day. Tomorrow will be my day, and I'll tell myself tomorrow will be my day, but today is not my day. The cat on my lap is too intrusive. It's head booping me, and it's trying to roll all around, and I'm like, okay, it's a bad day. I'm going to lay in bed. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to watch a movie. I'm going to, do what I need to do to feel better. That way I can come back tomorrow and feel, hopefully a little bit better. On days when I can work around the cat, I focus on the things that I have to do. If there are things that you have to do, like responding to customers, you have to do that. Packing orders to make sure that they go out on time. That's something you have to do, right? I will only do the things that I absolutely must do. Everything else, I usually take weekends off, but if there's something that I was too anxious to do during the week, I'm not so selfish in my own work that I say, you know what, I took all of Wednesday off, but I still am going to take off my weekend. No, I'll say, okay, I took Wednesday off. I'm going to sacrifice my Saturday to make up for that. And then, I just kind of move things around.
I get anxious about conflicts of politics and controversial issues are hard for me. Okay, so here's what you do, because it's the same way for a lot of people. For one, if you are on Facebook, which a majority of you are, and you have people who post politics consistently enough that it upsets your balance, you have an option to click the little, like, above their posts, the little 3 dots, and click, you can unfollow them. That way you don't have to unfriend them. You can still have conversations with them, but you don't have to delete them. That is the number one way to stay out of it. However, don't stay completely ignorant to politics and the events that are going on in the world. It is important for you to understand them. Just try to understand them on a deep level. And I think regardless of what side of the spectrum you're on, I think that if you're researching a topic, you should approach every topic with a moderate mindset. You should not be left-leaning or right-leaning when you begin to approach a topic. This is how we fix most societal issues in any society, and how we not turn into Rome, is you approach every issue from the middle, look at facts on both sides, and then lead towards the side that you want to be on. Right. Always start. You don't have to be a moderate. Always start in the middle and then work your way towards a side. Don't only research right. Don't only research left, and your life will be so much better. Don't worry about the people that are at the top, whether you voted for Biden or voted for Trump. Don't worry about those people. Those people are figureheads. At the end of the day, all they do is sign their name on the paper, right? They're not the ones making the decisions. They have a board of people that tells them what decisions to make. They're idleheads. So come up with your own decisions on the issue. Vote. Voice your opinion. Do your local, state, and all that. And if your side wins, then your side wins. But don't let it stress you out, because it's a spectrum, right? There's an ebb and a flow. You can't have all Republican presidents. You can't have all Democrat presidents. That's how you end up with Nazi Germany. That's how you end up with socialist governments. That's how you have to have both to have an equilibrium. So don't be too upset if the person that because your party's going to come back, and then they're going to lose, and then they're going to come back. That's how it's always been.
The thing is, we have people. I mean, we live in Ohio. We're in a mostly Republican state, but we have people who make, being a Republican their entire identity, where that's literally like the bumper stickers in their car is like American flag,
and that's all they talk about. And I have friends that are the opposite as well, and all they talk about is hating the Republican Party. At the end of the day, who cares? 99% of your life doesn't involve those politics. So don't let it absorb you, because that's exactly what they want, because that's what makes them money. If you've got 5 bumper stickers and a big flag and all this stuff, you're part of the corporate propaganda that wants you to spend money, because this politics thing is a game to get you to spend money. Enough of that, though, because good God, people are going to hate me for that.
Your hair is stuck in your sticky mustache.
It won't stop, so I've just started ignoring it. But yeah, be happy. Approach everything from a moderate mindset and then work your way over, and then you don't have to be on a far extreme left or right. And then no one will hate you because you're able to be open-minded. That's part of being open-minded.
Emotional responses, I told this to Amber yesterday. Emotional responses to things are indulgences. Allow yourself to think logically and always take the most logical path, and then allow yourself to indulge in the emotions that might come with them occasionally. But I try to never indulge in my emotions, because if I indulge in them, then they will take over.
Take your phone, throw it to the other side of the room.
Yep.
That's the number one way to avoid all of this crap. The reason that people are so politically and emotionally heated over this crap right now is because you're glued to your social media. Watch a TV show. Play a video game, play a board game, go outside, learn a skill, play an instrument, do something to get your body and your brain working, instead of just sitting around being paranoid about things that really don't affect you on a very big scale anyway. That's the way to do it. Because at the end of the day, all they want is your money.
I'm loving this chat. Reminds me of all the night discussions in college. I miss these intelligent open talks.
I was in intelligence in the Air Force, and that was kind of the thing, is that we were like top of the top, the butter of the ASVAB test. Everybody was relatively intelligent.
How should I overcome my social anxiety? Go back up.
I'm very antisocial.
Oh, okay. Exposure and moderation. I have very bad social anxiety, but I also trained myself to be able to be a public speaker. That's not something that I just naturally was able to do. I read the book Talk Like TED, which was a book about TED Talks, understanding those. I listened to public speakers and learned about what it takes to be a public speaker. And even when I do public speaking events, I have a playlist of videos that I watch before I do them. While I'm doing my makeup for the event, I have a playlist that I still keep to this day of different public speaking events that I, really liked from YouTube. And once my events are over, I go into a very dark state of depression, because I get what's known as a presentation hangover, because you're depleting your brain at that point. So with social anxiety, it's about exposure and practice. You're never going to be able to watch a YouTube video that's going to teach you how to do it. The more you're in front of a camera or in front of a crowd, the easier it does become, but also allowing yourself time to recover from that. Because even to this day, I've spoken in front of audiences of all different sizes. My biggest one was 1,200 people. They feel about the same to me, but I still, to this day, get that presentation hangover.
If you're already behind the 8 ball, how do you get far enough ahead to allow yourself the time?
If you're already behind the 8 ball, how do you
I'm not understanding your reference. What does that reference mean? Are you behind in your work?
How do you get far enough ahead to allow yourself the time? Yeah. Okay.
I'm thinking you're behind in your work. I'm going to assume that's what that means.
We're behind on this metaphor.
Sorry.
How do you get far enough ahead to allow yourself time? So you're already filled to the max with work. I would say that first of all, look at the workload that you already have for each day. Why are you doing all of the things that you do? Is there anything in here in this day that can be removed? And I would recommend starting by, just for 1 week, taking a piece of paper and write down every single thing that you do, from breakfast to cooking to driving to sitting on your phone, and write down everything. Don't try to change your behavior. But for the most part, when you become aware of what you're writing down, you try to be on better behavior, but try to not do that. Let yourself do what you would normally do, being conscious of those time frames. And then at the end of the week, you look at that list and you realize, okay, every day, I sat on my phone for, 5-minute increments at a time, but collectively it was 20 minutes worth of time. Well, that's a big chunk of time. So that tends to help a little bit if you just don't know where your time is going. That way you can start making sure that you're being as productive as possible. And I would say that take your current workload and write it down and segment it out by week. I wouldn't plan months and months and months ahead, because then it might make you feel even worse when you feel like you're not getting all of those things done. Mm-hmm. But try to plan things out for the week. Every single Sunday I sit down with my planner and I plan out the next week.
Mm-hmm. Even if you don't agree with someone, at least try to understand why they have that opinion.
Oh,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Closed-mindedness is the death of society. Sounds like they don't have much of a life, or it might be a way for them to be accepted in a group. Exactly. So, interesting thing, and again, politics thing, so mind it. There's a reason why certain areas vote the certain ways that they do, right? Like, you look at how parties are represented on both sides of the spectrum. You have people that are Republican leaning, typically are people that work labor jobs, farm jobs, those kind of things. It's not entirely there, but stereotypes are what they are. You're very underexposed to social life, which usually tends to make humans a lot more aggressive. That's why people tend to book all Republicans in with like angry, aggressive people. And obviously that's not true. The majority of people are totally fine and normal. But there are extremists on both sides. The same as you look at people that typically vote Democrat. They're people that work in cities. They're over-socialized. They're constantly on computers. They're constantly exposed to social media. And they end up being people who overanalyze and have information overload, so they don't know how to form a proper opinion based on what they're trying to do because they have too much information to pull from, and the majority of it is wrong. So you have to be careful, because sometimes it's a lack of having a life, and sometimes it's having too much of a life. That's why it's important to find a balance, and find your balance, and find what works for you to be mentally healthy. That way you can make informed, proper decisions without overreacting. Because that's why everybody gets so upset. Everybody is wanting to leave Facebook and this, that, and the other. And it's all a severe overreaction because you're so overly exposed to crap constantly. Just turn the phone off. Your phone has a button. Turns the screen off. Turn it off. Put it in a different room than you. Walk away from it. If you're getting upset at something that somebody else on social media is saying, chances are, for one, what they're saying probably is a half-truth, if anything. And for two, why do you care? It's probably somebody that has no relevance in your life whatsoever, other than the fact that you went to high school with them. So just put it away. Put it away.
I don't comment on anything anymore. I made a decision that unless it's something with the alphas, or in my Facebook groups, I don't post comments on anything that anyone posts ever. I don't, even if it's like, I don't do like even like happy birthdays and stuff on Facebook. No. If it's like a family member, I'll call them. But I don't comment on anything that isn't business related.
Yes.
I don't get into discussions with people. I don't comment on their posts. Because it starts this vicious cycle of needing to.
Yes.
And I don't want, if I could, I wouldn't have a social media account, but it's a very big part of my life and my business. But breaking that habit of commenting on things allows me to look at posts that I don't agree with and just go psh, and go past it. Like, every once in a while you see somebody post something and you're just like, pff, but you can scroll right past it and not feel that desire anymore.
Yes. Just because and I hate touching on stuff like this because I know we're going to get a lot of hate for the politics stuff, but I think for anxiety and depression, I think especially around election times, obviously this last election was really hard for a lot of people, but just understand that if you're on one side of the spectrum, the people on the other side aren't all the way that your side portrays them. Like, people who are Republicans aren't super religious, gun-toting, uneducated morons. And people that are over on the Democratic side aren't all hardcore SJW crazy people. Like, most people do really fall more moderate. Most people do fall somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. But both sides that have the money, all of the media and everything else, tends to portray the other side as this like demonic evil force that wants to take away everything. And that's not necessarily true. Obviously, the people at the top, the majority of them are pretty extreme because they're trying to appeal to the media that gets them the job in the first place. But don't judge your friends and your family members that way, because more than likely they're just confused and they're overwhelmed by what they're seeing. And if this kind of stuff, again, gives you anxiety, just start unfollowing people. Start unfollowing ads. I've turned off all of my targeted advertising on Facebook. I hide every ad that upsets me. I hide it, and I don't worry about it. You can gather your own opinions by doing research online when you have the time for it. If you're in the middle of working and you're scrolling through your Facebook group and that kind of stuff, and you're going back to your main feed and you're seeing this kind of stuff, all it is a distraction at the end of the day. It's making that like, I'm afraid I'm not going to get my work done. If you're spending 5 minutes scrolling through your feed just getting yourself upset, you're pulling yourself behind a lot farther than you could be. So don't let my main point with all of this is don't let the politics stress you out, because it's not as bad as it seems. It's really not.
2 books before we sign off here, I've got 2 book recommendations. I've recommended them a lot, but for this particular topic of, just this isn't just anxiety anymore. It's also about, just better mental health, I think, which is something that no matter what, every business owner experiences mental health issues. But Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely, finding out why your brain does stupid things is pretty important, even if you can't. Here's the thing, predictably irrational is literally that. It is irrational things that our brain does that we can't control, but by making yourself aware of them, after you do these irrational things, you can acknowledge them and say, wow, that was silly. Look, there's that silly thing that I learned about that I'm doing for no reason, but at least you're aware of it and it's not a mystery. The other book that I highly recommend is The Paradox of Choice by Barry Schwartz. That book is going to teach you a little bit about how the number of choices that we have, especially in America, the number of choices that we have today directly impact our happiness as a society. And in the book, Barry actually compares how some countries that have no freedom whatsoever actually produce people who overall are happier because they don't have to think so much about the choices that they make on a daily basis. That's not saying that, politically it's right to,
No. It's on paper.
Yeah.
Socialism on paper is the best government, but it doesn't work because humans exist.
Exactly. So. But what I'm saying is that this book is going to help you to make decisions more quickly without having to think. So I've made it a point that if Mark says, we're going to order DoorDash, like, what do you want from this restaurant? I just will usually name something. Like, even if it's not, I don't invest time into thinking about it. If we go to the grocery store and I'm trying to pick a flavor of coffee creamer, I just grab one. I don't sit and put any weight into that.
Don't overthink.
Exactly, because that takes energy. It takes processing power in your brain, and it takes away from your quality of life. Whereas if you just make quick decisions, then your brain isn't having to deplete itself and you're able to just kind of coast. So.
Damn, Mark's hair is more luscious than mine. Give me some of that.
Lushy.
Don't touch it. You'll screw it up.
Oh, I'm sorry. My hairspray was out this morning, so
I have pomade in it. If you screw it up, it is not going to go back to what it is now. I only get one shot with pomade. But that's pretty much all we have. I mean, at the end of the day with this, remember, love each other. Love as much as you can. Peace is the answer to everything. I mean, it's not always the solution. Sometimes you need violence to get peace, right? It's just how it is. And if you need help, don't be afraid to seek the help that you need. I think a lot of people forget that there is help out there, and a good majority of America's problems, America specifically, is because people are afraid to seek mental health help, or they don't have access to it. Remember, there are mental health resources on the internet. You can get
BetterHelp.
There are tons of online therapy things that you can sign up for an app. They're not cheap.
BetterHelp is very expensive.
They're very expensive, but if you can afford it, it's worth it. And unfortunately, a lot of insurances won't cover mental health services. Some of yours will, but a lot in America won't cover mental health services. You'll have to pay out of pocket. But a lot of issues can be fixed in the short term, don't require a long process to figure out. And don't be afraid to seek help, because everyone's human and everyone has their problems, whether they're mental, physical, emotional. Everybody has something wrong with them. And sometimes you need a little nudge. Sometimes you need a little nudge to get help. So,
yeah. And you're not crazy if you feel these things. Anything that we've talked about today, you're not.
And if you feel like you are, see a professional.
Yeah, the thing is, I think that everybody, when you feel alone and you assume that you're the only one experiencing these things, it makes you feel really, really bad. But in reality, there are probably a lot of people that are going through exactly what you go through. So.
I'm ex-military who tends to lean very center, and I have a lot of issues, and talking is the only thing that makes it better. Sometimes you just need somebody you can talk to. So if that's all you need, find somebody to reach out. Somebody in the alpha group might be willing to help you out. Like, hey, I'm having this problem today. There's nothing wrong with posting that, like, you're having a bad day with your shop and you just need a little bit of motivation. Post your puppies in the comments, that kind of thing. Just don't be a stinker. That's all we ask. If people offer their advice when you ask for it, accept the advice, or just don't comment at all if you can't accept it. Because I know how some people don't like to accept criticism. They don't like to accept advice. That's another part of being open-minded. You got to accept other people's opinions on things. So, and if you need professional help, again, everything that we've talked about here, we're not medical professionals. I'm not a political scientist. I'm not a nutritionist. I went to school for it, but I'm not a professional. Just do your own research and seek help from professionals if you do it. We love you guys, and all we want is a community of people who are able to work together to succeed.
Absolutely. So. All right, guys, make sure that you watch the video from Tuesday if you missed it. I think that it's a much more condensed version, but it also gives 7 actual actionable tips that should help you to maybe manage your anxiety a little bit better based on some of the things that have personally helped me. And next week we should be back to Etsy-related content, but since so many of you were curious about this topic, I thought that it was worth visiting because not enough business coaches talk about this stuff. I don't know if it's because they don't want to seem like they're crazy and they don't want their audience to think that they're human. They want to stand, tall and strong for their audience. But I think that it's better to just be vulnerable sometimes and talk about these things.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with it. And if people judge you for being a little bit vulnerable, then remove those people from your life. Screw those people.
Karen said my friend once told me I'm a Fruit Loop in a Cheerio world. That's great.
I feel like that sometimes. I get that. But we love you guys. Make sure you subscribed if you haven't already. Give it a thumbs up. It really does helps us reach more people. And we will see you guys on Tuesday for our next video.
Tuesday video. Yep.
Tuesday video.
Bye.